Well, thanks for coming up.
Oh, yeah. Happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Been wanting to get you guys up here. Isaac's here with you. Yeah, we've been trying to make this happen for a while.
Couldn't get him to use your gym equipment this morning, but at least he came up.
Yeah, he was all talk last night.
Yeah.
He came out this morning at 5:45 a.m. and yelled at my wife and I for being loud in the gym because our squat racks are mounted to his wall. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure he felt like he was sitting on the inside of a drum as we're putting weights back on the rack.
That's funny.
So, yeah, he's funny. What I want to talk about Ollin, but I actually don't know a heck of a lot about your past and how you got to where you're at today. And Isaac has bragged on you quite a bit, and like you got to get him on your podcast and kind of talk to him about his past and what you've done before.
Yeah, so. It's not just all crap talk with Isaac. He actually said some nice things about me, huh?
He did, yeah, but he won't admit.
He won't
to
admit it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And no, it's funny. Anytime I find out he said something nice about me, he gets ticked. He's like, "Oh, you weren't supposed to find out that I said that."
Exactly. So where did you grow up?
Yeah, so Southeast Idaho. Fortunate enough to live in a place that's surrounded by a ton of mountains and beautiful public land. And my dad grew up with 10 siblings, and they pretty much lived off of wild game. So he has got 8 brothers, 2 sisters, and they would go out, and it was like a chore for them. Like they'd go and try to harvest a bunch of mule deer, and they'd live off that meat for the year. Mm-hmm. And fortunately for me, out of all the siblings, my dad was the one that actually fell in love with it. And he didn't see it as just a chore. He really enjoyed it. And so I got introduced to, hunting and the outdoors at a super early age. And we pretty much everything out there: whitewater rafting, canoeing, backpacking, fishing.
Is that
hunting.
Still the area you live in today?
Yep. Southeast Idaho. Yep. Moved to Utah for a few years. Helped build another company before this one, and then moved back kind of during COVID and launched this one.
What kind of things were you into when you were in high school?
So, I wasn't the best student, but I loved making friends and going there for the social aspect. Mm-hmm. I went into the business program for college, and I was the type of student that I had to, study pretty hard to get good grades. And so I couldn't have like a traditional job and do full-time school and get good grades. So I started hustling in college, and I've kind of really never had like a traditional approach to work. I was washing windows, started a little window cleaning business, and then expanded that into carpet cleaning. Yeah. And then after I graduated, I was actually doing good enough with that I kept building that, and then expanded it and started doing like TV and internet. Like I started my own little retail. I was kind of approached to go do the door-to-door knocking, and I was like, why don't I just try to start this myself? And so I was doing all of that after school, and then through some networking, through some buddies, I actually got approached to go help build a company called Sign Glasses. So essentially, this was a technology that was born out of BYU Provo. And it was a technology that was catered for the deaf and hard of hearing folks. So imagine someone that's deaf and hard of hearing, they put on a pair of glasses, and in the glasses, they can actually see somebody signing to them. Oh, so wow. You and I are having a conversation. They could have these glasses on and actually be keeping up with the conversation, seeing somebody signing. And it was
the glasses are basically translating the words into sign language?
It's actually a live interpreter that's piping in remotely and signing. So it's like a real person signing back, but they see a video overlay of that person in the glasses.
Wow. Yeah. Well, stepping back, how did you, what did you study in college?
Business marketing.
Okay. Yeah. And how did that connection to that company come along? Did you apply for a job, or was it a connection?
No. So when I was building the window cleaning, carpet cleaning business, like things were going good financially, but I just felt like one of the things that I lacked is, I grew up in Southeast Idaho. I went to school in Southeast Idaho, is just the ability to expand my network. Mm-hmm. So I kind of set some personal goals and wanted to meet some other entrepreneurs and business professionals, and ended up connecting with an entrepreneur out of Utah. His name was Corbin Church. He started and sold multiple consumer good companies. I think his last company, it was some handbag company that got acquired for like $100 million. And anyways, I was networking with him, and he was teaching an entrepreneur class at BYU. And it just so happened that I had a good friend of mine that I went to school with that was taking his class. And anyways, between networking with him and the friend, they started what they called an incubator company. And so essentially those guys were taking these ideas, these technologies like Sign Glasses from BYU that were just kind of sitting on the shelf, and they were going and spending like 3 to 4 months trying to validate these ideas in the marketplace.
Okay.
Sign Glasses was one of the companies they were validating, and they felt like they had a really good response from the market. And that's when they reached out to me and said, hey, come earn some ownership in this company and essentially take this prototype, which was not ready to sell, take this thing that doesn't have any money or resources. It's literally a patent and a prototype, and try to build a business around it. So I jumped in, kind of left everything I was doing. I think I was only getting paid like $1,000 a month. So my wife and I, living in Utah, it was pretty scrappy, living off of our savings. I think we only had like $10,000 in our account at that time. And I was forced to try to learn how to get that thing off the ground like as quickly as possible. So we won some business competitions. Just solving one problem at a time, honestly.
Yeah.
Entered some business competitions. Utah's kind of like the mecca right now for startups. I feel like there's just startups popping up all over there. And so you're surrounded by a lot of new startups, and I was exposed to that. So learn how to take that prototype, get it to a point where we could actually sell it. We raised some capital with some investors over there and kind of got that thing going, and I helped grow that company. So I was the one that was responsible for all the early business development, the sales processes, hiring the right people, pitching it to investors. And
how old were you at this point?
This was about 4 years ago, or actually, no, 6 years ago now. So this was right after I graduated college.
In your 20s?
Yep, in my 20s.
Yeah.
Yep, late 20s.
Yeah, that had to have been an invaluable experience, I would imagine. Just being able to, and it's cool that they kind of trusted you to go off and do that.
Yep. Yeah, it was a big leap, but yeah, I learned a ton, and that company's still going today. I think there's 20 employees. I had transitioned into full-time sales, so this was 6 years into it. I was kind of the only one that was willing to step up to the plate. It's a very long sales process there because we're working a lot with schools and universities, and we expanded the technology. The glasses were a big part of what we do, but we built an entire education platform for students that are deaf and hard of hearing. There's so many of them around the world that just don't have access to like good qualified interpreters, and it can literally just completely cripple their lives.
So you basically have interpreters kind of sitting in an office, basically on call for when they're needed, essentially.
Yep, we had a bunch that were in-house, and then we had a bunch that were just contracted out. And
those glasses are just a camera, so that interpreter can, or are they like a microphone? Is there a microphone?
So we'd always have both set up so they could see and hear what was going on in whatever scenario. For example, this one, a classroom scenario, and then they would remotely sign that, and it would be pumped back to the computer. So we built a platform where if I'm a deaf and hard of hearing student and I don't have an interpreter that lives in my area, I can open up my laptop, see a live video of the interpreter, a live video of the classroom. I can take notes, and everything's timestamped and recorded. So if you're deaf, you can imagine, like, if I look down to take notes, I become like, I don't know what's going on anymore, right?
Volume,
it's not like us, like you and I can look away and still talk to each other and hear what's going on, right?
Yeah, I didn't think of that.
And so we built that platform so they could go back and rewatch that, have all that recorded, and then the glasses were another tool that we offered for any of those hands-on stuff. So some of your guys out here sharpening knives, if you're trying to train them, someone that's deaf could come in and have the glasses and see what they're doing and still be able to communicate and catch what's going on.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, anyway, so that's kind of my background there. And then
how long were you involved with that?
6 years.
Okay.
Yep. And I still have some ownership over there. And kind of what you mentioned, like, I think the goal for that one, we wanted to get it in deaf hands. And what's cool is the majority of the company now is deaf and hard of hearing. I didn't have any direct ties to the deaf community prior to that, but that was kind of like our goal. And then one day have an acquisition. And even if we never have an acquisition and I don't have any financial upside, like the experiences that I learned there and I've been able to dump into this one, like, it was invaluable. Like,
so you didn't sell your stake in it. You're still
involved. I still have ownership. Yeah. There's some of my options that I forfeited, jumping into this full time, but I still have half of what I was initially vested. So
what made you step away from that and chase this?
Honestly, it got to the point where, like I said, I love that company, super passionate about it, but it got to the point where every single day when I'm making 100, cold calls, selling this, like, I felt like I kind of learned the skills, but it wasn't really stretching me anymore. Yeah. And I'm just the type of personality where if I feel like something's not stretching me, I almost get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And anyways, I can get into the story later on how this started, but how Ollin started, but I just knew this was what was going to take me to the next level. It was going to push me, get me uncomfortable again, and make me kind of apply all the principles that I had learned up to that point into something that I was super passionate about and an industry that I love. Right. And I didn't grow up like with the idea or vision that, like, I want to start a company in the outdoor space.
Right.
But man, it's been so cool to be able to do that and connect with such incredible people like yourself in that space, like-minded people. And so,
how did it start? I mean, how did the idea come along? And had you quit the sign glass thing before, or did this idea kind of come along and then you decided to step out?
Yeah, so the idea came about while I was still working full time, and I'm a strong believer. There's so many podcasts out there, and I get people that reach out to me all the time, like, "Hey, I want to start my own thing. Like, you guys have inspired us. We've heard something that's inspired us." And I think some of the best advice I received is like, hustle on the side while you're still working a full time job.
Yeah.
So you can still. At this point, I've got a wife and kids. I got to make a living for them, and so. How this started was I actually drew out on a once-in-a-lifetime bighorn sheep hunt in Idaho. And so I've been using digiscoping adapters for years, but never really took it too serious, never really loved how they worked. But when I drew out on this once-in-a-lifetime bighorn sheep hunt, I was like, man, for me, field judging a bighorn sheep compared to elk and deer is just a completely different ballgame. Mm-hmm. I've never done it, and so pictures and videos became like a crucial tool to be able to judge these sheep and decide, what's a mature ram that I want to harvest in this particular hunt. And there was one particular day we were up like 10,000 feet elevation. It's a Lost River mountain range in Idaho for anybody that knows that, and glassed up an incredible ram with my binoculars. I pulled out my spotting scope and I got the spotter on there, and I was using a competitor product at the time. And it just took me so long to try to get the dang thing connected to my scope. And this ram was moving towards some trees that by the time I finally got it connected, like my phone was actually falling off and I just missed that video.
Yeah.
And then that can completely change the hunt, right? So that's where the pain point started, was that once-in-a-lifetime bighorn sheep hunt. And then fast forward a few months after this hunt, this is where the story kind of takes a turn for, you can call it a little weird. Isaac makes fun of me about this all the time, but I literally had like a dream that I was working on a product. Mm-hmm. And I woke up the next day and I couldn't remember details, but my mind's just spinning innovation mode. And I remember I went and grabbed a piece of paper. I was working from home at the time. I sat down at my desk and I drew out this idea on a piece of paper of this digiscoping adapter with magnets.
Right.
And I remember looking at the piece of paper and it looked absolutely terrible. I'm not an artist at all, but I remember just getting this strong feeling that like, I can't let this just be an idea that sits on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Like, get up and go do something with that. And so I literally told my wife, like, hey, I'm running to Walmart. I bought phone cases, magnets, plastic, glue, all these things. Came home and I was trying to piece something together. Epic fail, like did not work at all. And I was like, okay, I've got to take a different approach to this. And like I said, my background's business marketing. I had no engineering degree. So I spent 2 weeks watching YouTube videos on how to do a basic CAD design. Literally, I was doing a circle with circles in it.
Right.
Like any engineer that knows what they're doing, they could do it in about 2 seconds. I remember the first time when I was like going out and trying to find like a company that could produce this for us.
Right. I
had an engineer that literally I watched draw this design in about 5 minutes. I'm like, yeah, I just spent 2 weeks and like hours trying to build this thing. But finally,
that's how I feel around here all the time. These guys around here, whether it's video editing or like you say, the CAD stuff on the computer.
Yeah, they're
wizards.
Oh yeah. And so I finally got it to a point where I was really close, and I had a cousin who's an engineer that I said, hey, I just need a couple of tweaks. He helped me make those tweaks, and I went and 3D printed this essentially circle with magnets in it. And I remember the first time I tried to put it on my spotting scope, it was too tight. So I spent hours sanding this stupid piece of plastic to finally get it to get on there. And then I had another ring that I glued onto my phone case, and I was inserting the magnets and one of the polarities was off. So I had to figure out which one it was. So on the other one, I had a magnet flip. Anyways, I remember the first time I put it together, I put it on my spotting scope. And when I put my phone up and it just sucked to it, and it worked, I was just like, oh my gosh, like this actually worked. And I remember I had the competitor products sitting on the table, and I was like, right now those look a lot better. But if I'm back on that mountain with that sheep, I would rather use this thing right now any day than that.
Right.
And then that's when the wheels started turning. Okay, how do I take this from this to an actual product that's ready to be sold to customers and stuff like that? So
I'm glad you said that about to people. I mean, we get that message a ton where it's like, you've inspired me, or I want to quit my job and chase my dream or whatever. And some of the people I've interacted with, I'll generally ask like, where are you at with it right now? What are you doing right now? And it's like, well, I haven't done anything with it. I need to quit my job so I have time to like mess with it. And it's like, man, unless you're independently wealthy, or just single and it doesn't matter, if you have a family, you have a responsibility to pay your bills and take care of your kids and do all those things. And it's like, you definitely need to get up earlier and go to bed later, you know, and spend your weekends, maybe instead of going to a football game, you spend all Saturday working on your, you know, digiscoping attachment. Like that's the way to, you know, start to, you know, because you're going to run into roadblocks that cost you weeks.
Oh yeah.
If not months. And so if you're without income, you also then, I think, start to make decisions for the wrong reason, not for the quality of the product, but for the sake of time,
right,
or the sake of expense, right? So maybe the product you end up with in the end isn't as quality as it could have been. But if you'd have had a job paying your house payment the whole time, you might have taken that extra 2 months to get that product right, whatever the product is.
100%.
But yeah, I think a lot of people think that I just went and quit my job and then started this. And it's like, my wife was trying to get me to quit my job for months before I finally did. But it was, you know, it's a big gamble.
Yeah. And the reality is, if you're not willing to figure stuff out at night and on the weekends, you're probably really not that passionate about it. Because that was the one thing I found. Yeah,
you should be excited to get out there.
I was so excited about this. Like, once I got that idea going, I was so excited that, like,
yeah,
this is going to turn into something cool. And so you're willing to grind those extra hours. And I was still not neglecting my day job. And like I said, I had an owner vision on that too. So I was still trying to grind and build that company while building this. And I literally got the company. It was originally going to be called MagScope. I can kind of share how that shifted, but MagScope was going to be the initial name of the company. But I literally went through, filed patent, trademark, got our initial order all here before I even left to do it full time. And this was all weekends and evening times, not neglecting my day job. And so you can do quite a bit if you're passionate about something without having to leave and not have a way to provide for the family in my situation.
Yeah, if you're really efficient with your time, if you're working an 8-hour-a-day job, you can definitely squeeze in another 8 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's there. You know, if it's a couple hours before work, 6 hours after work, you know, it's not easy. And there's definitely a balance there between that and making sure you're being a good dad or husband. And, you know, so, but, you know, the time is the time is there in the week. You know, it might be only 3 or 4 hours on Tuesday and Wednesday, but then you might get 12 hours in on Saturday, right, you know, or whatever.
And I was super fortunate. One of the things that you talk about all the time is like, hey, find people that are smarter than you to come in and help, you know, build awesome things. And that's exactly what happened with me. So a really good friend of mine that I grew up with, and we hadn't connected in a lot of years. He was in New Mexico, but he's a brilliant engineer. He was the type of kid that would, like, you know, crush the ACT scores, just got that engineer mindset, just sees and thinks completely different than me. And I had reached out to him when I kind of had this concept, and I showed him what I had, and he's the one that really took it and got it to a point where, like, sharpened the design and made it production ready.
Yep.
And he was just willing to do all this. I actually had him kind of partner up on the initial patent that we filed, so he's one of the co-inventors on it.
Okay.
Because for engineers, that's a good thing to add to your resume when you're like a co-inventor on a product, on a patent and stuff like that. And
sure.
But
how did the name come along?
Ollin.
Yeah.
So, my personality, I wanted to build a company that had a strong vision and mission statement. I wanted to understand, like, my personal why. Like, why are we building this? Am I building just to sell a product? Because I feel like if you're only building a company to sell a product, you're only going to last so long. And so it's just something that I've been passionate about kind of for years, is understanding my why and having a strong vision and mission statement. And like I said, so we were originally going to call this company MagScope. I had some early marketing partners, Jordan and Casey Harbertson, some of the co-founders of Mountain Ops, that gave me some advice like, hey, let's not name the company MagScope because that's going to, you know, kind of narrow you to one product line. Let's come up with something more broad. And I immediately was like, I love that advice. And I didn't feel like MagScope actually fit like our company. Like I had been typing out some ideas on like our vision and mission statement. And anyways, I had been writing some things on why I wanted to build a company. And at the time I was reading this book, or listening to it probably, because I don't read. I got too much ADD. I listen to the podcasts and stuff like that, listen to the audiobooks. But I was listening to this book called Aspire. So it's a book by a guy named Kevin Hall. He's essentially traveled the world. He's learned about all these different cultures, and he takes a specific word from that culture and he talks about its origins and why it has meaning to that culture. So one of the words is like namaste. He talks about like why that has meaning to those people. One of the words in that book was this word, all in. And when I started reading it, it's an ancient Aztec word. When a big storm or earthquake would shake the earth, these Aztecs would scream and yell in urgency this word, all in. And it literally translates into moving and acting with all your heart right now.
Oh, really?
And I remember when I read that, I was like, man, that's exactly how I felt when I picked up that stupid piece of paper, like, a while back, like, got to do something with this. And then the more I started reading about this word, it's also on the Mexica Sunstone, and it signifies the moment somebody becomes aware of what they can become. And so I took that and I was like, I can't think of a better vision or a why for All In than to help people become aware of what they can become.
Right.
And then our mission statement, and the way I separate the two is I always look at the vision as the why, the long-term goal that you're literally always chasing, but you can never 100% achieve.
Right.
Because we can't get everybody in the entire world to become aware of what they can become, and that's what I love about it. You're always chasing it. And then the mission, the way I break that up is that's typically the how. And that became through our innovative product, strategic partners, and the content and experiences that we create. We want to connect other people to their passions and empower them to move and act with all their heart.
Right.
And so that became just such a clear vision and mission statement for All In, and it gave me like purpose.
Yeah.
Like besides just selling an awesome product. And like I said, innovation is always going to be key. We showed you some stuff earlier today. We're going to continue to innovate and try to add value to this community that we love and other communities too.
Right.
But that's why we named the company All In, and that's just like kind of stuck for it. And most people pronounce it Ollin when they first see it, but we're slowly getting the word out. But it's Ollin, and it's All In.
So how a lot of people ask me, curious to see how you did it. Okay, you've invented this product, you've done a little bit of engineering, and then let's say you've found a factory to produce it. Then how do you sell it? How do you launch it to the market? What was your strategy? Do you go, because people ask me these things. It's actually kind of funny. Right now, we don't do like retail stores, right? But initially, I went and knocked on retail stores' doors and got told no. We didn't have the packaging that would work for them well, and barcodes and all these different things. So it was more of like, well, then we'll just sell them on our own website. And then it got to a point where we were doing so well on our own website that now we're telling the stores no, But I think that's the typical response for people, is they're going to then go knock on their local sporting goods store's door or something like that. Now you had a little bit of maybe some help with, those guys that founded Mountain Ops and whatnot. So they probably had some connections. But what was your initial thought on how you were going to market this, and then how did it end up going?
So I initially wanted to go direct to consumers, sell it on our own website. My kind of vision for retail is let's kind of look at retail maybe year 3 or 4. But I feel like you can do so much more with your brand.
Yeah.
If you can sell direct to consumers and that's the only place they can get it. Jordan and Casey definitely played a big role in putting together the initial launch strategy. And I appreciate that like so much, because I had product here. So at this point, I've taken a little bit of investment, some family, some strategy. I think we raised like 100 to 150K. So it wasn't like a significant amount of money, but it was enough that put pressure on me. I wanted to make sure I maintained control of the company from day one. I had some kind of experiences with Sign Glasses where we were kind of crippled in the speed at which we could grow, because me and my friend, who were the ones running it full time, didn't have majority shares, and it made decision making super slow. And that's why I wanted majority shares. It's not because of, I want this huge acquisition at the end and a big paycheck for myself. It's because you want the people that are in the trenches to be making the decisions, because no one
allows you to be nimble, fast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I was going to launch the company in March. They advised me, let's wait till summer. And it was hard because at this point I was like, man, I paid for product. I was getting ready to leave my other job, and I was ready to go all in.
Yeah.
So the goal was, the second I decided to turn this on, I've transitioned away from Sign Glasses. I'm doing All In full time. And we put the strategy together, and kind of like our mission, we wanted to connect with, we've got incredible ambassadors that are working with us. We were able to get in front of them before we launched. We had some podcasts ready. They were obviously super bought in on the story. They were bought in on the product. And that's like, to me, one of the most important things when you're going to launch a company. Surround yourself with people that understand your why, and that you're providing them an experience to springboard them to the next level and achieve their why, and they're helping you do the same. So to me, it wasn't just connect with these ambassadors, help sell products fast. It was like, how can we work together to all grow together? And so that's what we had done. We connect with the right ambassadors. And I remember the first day we turned on the website. It was 6:00 at night in July 18th, I believe was the exact date.
Of what year?
2022. We just barely completed hit our 2-year fiscal year. And the first day, just watching the game plan roll out and actually work was just like crazy to me. I think we did like 18,000 in sales like our first day, and I couldn't believe it. And what was cool is the marketing strategy that we put together. Like, it was like we created this wave in the industry, and it's been cool for me to see, like, there's been so much other innovations and hype around digiscoping, which was a product segment that was stagnant for so many years. And it's been cool to kind of, I feel like Ollin was a big reason why that's kind of happened. But yeah, that was kind of like the initial vision was to go direct to consumers. And we did end up bringing a strategic retail on, which was Go Hunt. And we essentially got pretty aggressive on the only way this makes sense is if they put this massive PO, and what it allowed me to do is just innovate other future products faster.
Sure.
And so that's who we've got right now, but that's the only retail that we're working with. And that's kind of similar. Like, they go direct to consumers. Like, we're not in a Shields or anything yet, but the goal is to stay direct for several years before we really expand into retail.
Yeah. There's, there's advantages to retail stores. If you go to Shields or if you're in Cabela's or whatever, there's, tons of traffic, right? Lots of people walking by, they see your brand. And so it can be very beneficial. Like you say, they can put in big POs that help you, get kind of some seed money to kind of keep going. And like you say, innovate your product. Very few people get their first product right the first time. So there's changes, there's new manufacturing that has to happen. But that also comes at a cost, right? To your margins and stuff. And the other piece that I think a lot of people don't understand is the power of owning your own customers' data, right? So if I go buy an Ollin attachment for my spotting scope from somewhere else, you as the owner don't know me. You don't know, you don't know that Josh Smith in Montana has this Ollin attachment, and then you can't, when you do improve your product or you go to launch a new product, you then can't tell me about it because you don't know who I am, right? And so there is a huge benefit to being able to reach out and talk to your customer. Or maybe you end up developing a bit of an issue with one of your products. You're not going to get it necessarily right every single time. You can then also reach out and say, hey, we're having this issue. If you have this, reach out to us. Instead of me just shit talking your product and never buying it again, you have a chance to make it right. Right. And to make sure I know that you're aware there's a problem and you're going to help me solve it right in that customer service side of it. But the being able to reach out to your customers, month after month, year after year, and tell them about new products, you get those repeat buyers, and that's where I think a lot of people, I think they maybe get excited potentially about a big PO from a bunch of big retailers. But that might be just a little short-sighted on the big picture.
Yeah, you lose control to some aspect.
Yeah.
I just see so many more advantages to going direct. It obviously, like with innovation and improving products, like that's massive. Any email or questions that they have about products, it's coming directly to you.
Right.
Telling the story, your story, their stories. The only way they can do that is through you. Yeah. And so, I think there's tons of advantages of that.
There's also, big advantages to being in those retail stores. It's funny, when I'm in Shields and I see a ton of people walking by the knife and gun section and we're not in there, a lot of them are older gentlemen that probably don't have Instagram, probably don't have social media, right? And do we have their email address? Do we know who they are? So I think that's where some of the in-person events that we've seen you guys at are important, hunting shows and different things where you get that 65, 70-year-old guy that didn't grow up with Instagram, Facebook, also be able to put their hands on it. That's another advantage to a store.
Oh, massive.
Right? They can sit there and they can play around with the system and kind of, what is this and how does this work? And then it snaps right onto their spotting scope and they're like, oh, shit, that's cool. You can't get that from the internet. So, there's pluses and minuses for sure.
We see that at shows all the time, and it still blows me away how many people we've ran into, even just like we did a small local archery event in Idaho, and the amount of the older generation that would come up to us, and they didn't even know what digiscoping was, let alone our products. And we're educating them for the first time that they can connect their smartphone to their optics. And there's definitely power that, especially with our product, because when we hand a phone to a customer and let them do it themselves, and it's just that quick, the alignment's like auto-centered, it like blows them away. It's like they're seeing electricity for the first time.
Yeah.
And that type of feedback, you can only get when you're in person, like watching those experiences. So
and there's other magnetic attachments out there, but you really have to fumble around with them. And to your point, being fast, a lot of times, like you say, you get an animal in your spotter, they're standing there, whether they're grazing in an opening or, maybe you bumped them earlier and they come up to the top of the hill and they're stopped for just a minute. Being able to switch over fast from binos to a spotting scope, or to be able to toss your phone up really fast and get, like you say, a quick video that you can then sit there and zoom in on and review over and over and analyze that animal at that point. It's huge. I have one sitting in my living room on a spotting scope where I can just pop my phone on at any point. And honestly, there's another added benefit to it where I'll set that spotting scope up on elk across the river from my house when it's not so smoky. Right now it's so smoky, it's hard to see anything up there. But you can pop your phone on there and 3 or 4 people can gather around the spotting scope and look at it. And even out in the field, we've done that, with our, different guides or different people we've had with us. Only one person can look through a spotting scope at one time, but you pop it up on the phone and zoom it in, 6 people can stand around and gather around and talk about that animal.
Totally.
And I think that's actually, even if you're not recording, that's a benefit that a lot of people don't talk about.
And it's, to me, one of my favorite things is it's such an easy way to get the kids involved. If I tell my little 5-year-old boy to come up and look through the spotting scope to see an animal, do you think he's going to be able to find it and figure it out? Like,
right.
No. I remember, like, when we were testing some of the earlier prototypes, I remember one of the things that I did is I brought a friend over to my house and I had some of our competitor products on the table, and I said, hey, I want to time you. I want to get you like put your phone on the spotting scope, and I want to see how fast it is. And he's sitting there, twisting things around, moving things around, finally gets it on there. I stop the timer. I have my 5-year-old daughter come out with our prototype.
Yeah.
And I have her step up there, and in 1 second, she slaps the phone on there, and it's like on there and going. And, that was kind of a fun thing to run through. But I do that with my kids all the time. Even if it's just a window mount in the truck, we're looking at something, I put my phone on there, and all the kids can come around and see what we're looking at. And so it's a fun tool for that too. And the reality is too, like the hunting industry, which is kind of where we focus. And there's a lot of people that use this that aren't hunters, that are just wildlife enthusiasts that want to capture those videos and pictures. But in the hunting space, like, it's grown so much over the last decade and has become so competitive that this Ollin snapshot system, our digiscoping setup, has become like a necessary tool for people.
Yeah.
Because they use it to be more ethical. They use it to field judge more accurately. And after they've made a shot, a lot of people are going back and rewatching and seeing like what happened during this experience. And it helps them make a better decision when they're tracking and doing things like that.
Right.
Because if they know they made a bad shot, man, they need to wait an hour at a minimum before they go after that animal, or they're just going to bump it and then it's gone. Right. And so, it's become one of those things where I feel like years ago it was kind of this fun thing to have and it was kind of a luxury, but now it's almost become, for a lot of the Western hunters, especially, kind of a necessary tool.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. And in the beginning, I think I only saw it for spotting scopes, but you guys have attachment for binoculars now, right?
Yep. Binoculars, spotting scopes, and we're just continually expanding those. We've got about another half a dozen that are going to be dropping here next month. Leupold Gold Ring is a really popular spotting scope that's been around, especially in the tactical, for a lot of years. And we're going to have an adapter dropping with that one here in the next month or so.
How has it been? One question I've got is, a challenge for you is they're constantly changing and innovating phones, right? So I don't know what the average is, but I bet people have a new phone at least every 3 years. Some people are every year or two. And so are you able to get with and there's all these different phone companies, right? So are you able to get with those manufacturers and get kind of some ideas of like how to build your molds ahead of time, or are you kind of like chasing that?
Yeah, been a big challenge, a big process, and we're finally to the point, like for example, the iPhone 16s, which are dropping next.
Yep.
We've already got a hold of what the designs are going to look like. We're already working on molds on those.
Oh, really?
And so that's definitely been a big challenge for us. And, there's opportunity costs in pretty much everything that you do. And specifically with our product design, the biggest pain point we were trying to solve was when you're out in the field, you can have that instant alignment. Whether it's vertical or horizontal, our snapshot just instantly aligns. That's the biggest pain point. And I knew that after we had solved that, there were some other things that people were going to bring up. What's funny is most of the, I wouldn't say negative feedback, but the feedback that we get, like as far as how we can improve it, is actually not related to digiscoping. So the way our phone case works, you've got a magnetic tab centered around the camera that you're going to be using for digiscope. When you're recording, you're not using your flashlight, you're not using your other lens, but people want to use this case for just their everyday case, right? And so the opportunity cost with our first design was you can't access your other cameras, use your flashlight when you're using this digiscoping adapter. But when you're in the field, it'll be the most efficient thing out there. So now it allows us to take customer feedback. We've been for 2 years, and now we're working on what we're going to call Snapcase 2.0 that'll still allow us to solve the biggest pain point, the instant alignment, but also solve some of these other things that people are providing and improve the digiscoping experience. But yeah, as far as the product development manufacturing side, the challenge with this design, and we didn't want to deal with screws or twisting on or any of that stuff. And so we are literally building these optic specific. And so you've got a ton of mold costs. You've got a ton of that's going into it. And we're making it a super premium product.
Well, yeah, you got to put that, I don't know what you call the piece that goes on the actual spotting scope.
Yep, the alignment ring. Yep.
Yeah, so that alignment ring, you have to make a ring that fits every damn spotting scope out there. So,
and one of the cool things with the design too is any of our phone cases fit any adapter. So some of our competitors, for example, if you get a new phone, you have to buy the entire setup again.
Right.
Ours, you just need a new case.
Yep.
And we're slowly improving that process too. So you and I could be on a hunt together. I run Android. I'm sure you run an iPhone. And we could be using both of our phones on the same spotting scope.
Yeah, I've noticed that's super handy because some of the other competitors that you guys have got out there, if you don't have, if you don't have this compatible stuff, then they're using their setup and I'm using mine and it doesn't work together. And you're right, like on the phone case, in the beginning with yours, people kind of had to use your phone case as their just hunting phone case and then pop their other phone case kind of back on for life.
Yep.
But it sounds like that's kind of going to be changing potentially here.
Yep.
Is that this coming this fall?
That'll probably be early spring.
Early spring.
Yep. And I learned the hard way with our drop on our new product. We call it the Nexus. We announced that and started taking pre-orders at the Hunt Expo in Salt Lake in February. And I learned the hard way that it's just like, don't take pre-orders until we know stuff's in shipment.
Those are just the learning experiences and bumps in the road. I mean, especially later on when you have maybe even better manufacturing set up and a better process and whatnot, maybe a guy can count on that a little bit. But I've learned over the last few years that about the time you think you really got something nailed, it changes. And I mean, you and Isaac were sitting in here waiting for me this morning, and I was in the other room literally talking about a last minute change on some tactical knife stuff that we're doing. I literally just changed the product this morning. We chatted about it on Friday with a couple of our guys, and then I wanted to show Brandon, but if you take pre-orders and you kind of sell them on something, then that also, there's the timing aspect, but then there's also that like and maybe it's more of a chance with us, but there's those last minute changes that maybe you decide to make. But if you've kind of locked into a certain thing, then people,
right, it can bottleneck you.
Yeah. So, but also, and this is where people have to decide when they're starting their own businesses, you have to look at what works best for you, because you might have to take those pre-orders to fund it.
Right.
Would I take pre-orders, or if it meant taking some pre-orders one time for a new product I'm dropping, or giving up 30% of my company to an investor for just to make one drop happen, and now all of a sudden I've lost 30% of my company for life. Right. Like, yeah, maybe taking a pre-order would be smart, so long as you think you have to have a way to know you can pay that money back if it just totally fails. Mm-hmm. And two, I think just being, you were telling me about that this morning, just open lines of communication with the customers and being totally honest and being like, hey, if you're frustrated, I get it. Here's your money back. But I think really customers are pretty patient if you just keep them informed.
Oh yeah,
and they understand.
Communication goes such a long ways.
They know you're a newer company. They see what you're doing, and I think so long as you're open and honest on your social medias and through email, and just like, hey, we're struggling, we're trying, we're going to get there. Thanks for being patient. That's all people really want.
Oh yeah, no, it goes such a long ways. We literally had this happen just a few weeks ago, where we sent anybody that's made a pre-order, and the reality is, to me, it actually wasn't a financial decision. It was, we knew we were going to have so many people walking to our booth at this Hunt Expo, hundreds of people. We were excited. We had the functioning prototypes, and we wanted people to experience that. Right. And so I made the decision based off of that, and that's when I realized, like, we probably could have built the hype anyway without that show, but there's a lot of power in seeing it in person. So I made that decision, but we sent an update to anybody that's made a pre-order, and we ran a promo for people that had made the pre-orders, and the benefit for those individuals is they're going to get one at a lot lower cost, and we're throwing in a bunch of other free stuff. But we sent an email out kind of giving them an update, and I had just a couple that were like expressing their frustrations, and I just straight up reached out to them, and it like blew them away that like me, the founder, was reaching out to them, that like, just the fact that you did this alone, like, I'm going to be an Ollin supporter for life. Right. Like, I can't believe you took the time. And so just like you said, like, just take the time and communicate. And I've been super open, like, guys, this is when I thought it was coming. Here's what I literally let them know, like, this is what happened in the production process. It slowed things down. This Nexus thing, we got a little trigger that locks it onto your scope, and it's just, there's little moving parts and components in it we had to adjust to make it better. And so it goes a long ways. You're way
better off being late than delivering a product that's not right.
Exactly.
And, for people that are looking at launching their own product or doing something, there's a lesson in patience too. Like, trust me, there's been plenty of shows where we were knocking right on the door of having a new knife or new product out, and so badly wanted to take it to that show and like take pre-orders, because you're excited to show it. You're excited about it. And it's just like, man, if this thing was 2 weeks later, we'd be ready. But we're not ready, so we're not going to do it. But yeah, there's just all kinds of these little lessons.
Oh yeah.
Have you guys, have you guys started hiring? Like, where? So, because you just started with yourself.
Yep.
I guess, when did you find Isaac? How did that happen?
Yeah. So I guess I'll give just a little bit of context. So when I launched the company, I was the only one running it full time, but I had some incredible support. Like I said, Jordan and Casey, my family group of investors. So it was my dad, my brother, and uncles and cousins. One of them's a lawyer. My dad, my brother, finance, CPA, which, funny enough, they went into accounting. It's the only class in college I had to retake, so I knew I couldn't chase that career path. Yeah. And then marketing and software development. And so I had a lot of really good support around me to kind of help me get it to where it was. And obviously they saw me hustling, and they obviously appreciated that. Mm-hmm. So definitely wasn't a thing that happened solely because of me, but for the entire first year, I was the only one operating full time. Yeah. And fortunately, since our very first raise of capital, which was just $150K, we've never had to raise capital again. We've been able to operate 100% off of sales. Mm-hmm. And in year two, we've expanded from one employee to, we've got 5 full-time now, and we're having another full-time jump in September. So from 1 to 6, to me, it's a pretty cool milestone, especially because we're paying for all of these individuals based off of just sales. Yeah. And so can't thank my customers enough, obviously, for getting us to this point that we can do this. But Isaac came into play through Jordan and Casey, specifically Casey Harbertson. And they were just kind of talking to me, as we were approaching year 2, what are some of your needs? What are some of the things you're looking for? And I kind of just wrote down, here's some things it'd be awesome to have support with. And they said, we've got a guy for you. Didn't even know who Isaac was.
Yeah.
Met him one time. We went to a restaurant together, and I literally made the decision based off of I thought he was a good guy, right when I met him, and trusting my partners.
Right.
And we hired Isaac. And Isaac, for anybody that knows Isaac, I think there's a lot of people in the industry that know people in the industry, but there's not a lot of people that have those deep relationships like Isaac does in the industry. And he can connect with people in a way that not many people can connect. And he can connect with a demographic that, quite frankly, I can't connect with as good.
Right.
And so, yeah, he came into the play through them. He just hit his 1-year mark with us, and it's been absolutely incredible. And it's so funny because I have my engineer and stuff what does Isaac do all day? I was like, just don't worry about it. Just let Isaac do his thing. Trust me, you almost can't quantify the value that Isaac can bring.
Yeah.
We could obviously get more strategic with the company and set more KPIs, but he's a creative, he's a networker, and those are the type of people you cannot put in a box.
Yeah, there's some
you've got to just let him go.
There's some invaluable connections and doors that he can open. It's really funny because when you guys were looking at hiring him, we had offered him a job as well. He had become available, after he was done working at Black Rifle Coffee, and offered him a job, and we chatted a little bit about it, and he's like, well, there's this other thing. I'm going to see how that works out, and what their job offer is, and kind of went back and forth. And of course, we would have preferred to have had somebody here in house, though we were going to kind of let that one, and with Isaac's situation, with his family and everything, he needed to be down there. And so we were kind of chatting back and forth, and ultimately he went with you guys. And so now I get to give him all kinds of shit. He turned his back on us, and
now me and you can make jokes, and I can make a joke like you dodged a bullet, Josh.
Oh, I dodged a big bullet.
Even though it's not the case, but we just give each other crap.
Yeah. No, I definitely love to be like, man, glad you got him and glad we didn't. So
yeah, you'll have to talk to him about, I know he's going to come in for a podcast next, talk to him about that side of the story and how that all went. Cause I don't know if I've actually truly sat down and asked him all the whys on why us, why not. I mean, he didn't know me either, just like I didn't know him.
I think he really was excited about potentially getting in on something that was brand new. Building, he's always kind of jumped onto stuff, as most employees do, come into something that was already built, at least to some degree. And I think for sure in his career, everything has kind of been built, and then he comes in and, as another employee that helps try to grow it. But I think he really liked the idea. And then I think, you were a big part of that too, of he really did he kept telling me I really like this owner. He seems like a good dude. His heart's in the right place. So I think it was a lot of that stuff,
and I think that's a lesson right there to extract, is understanding your why and the vision and the mission before you make these decisions is so critical, because that's what I share. With any of our employees that we brought on, any of our partners, I talk about that typically first before our products. And they either capture the vision or they don't. And if those align, and where Isaac was at with his career, this has provided him an opportunity to just springboard and learn a whole bunch of new skills and the art of the startup and things like that. And so that's been really cool for me. The guy that we're bringing on, we'll announce soon in September, he's been in the hunting industry for 7 years, but it's just been bottlenecked to one specific thing. And we're going to provide him the opportunity to become a true marketer and develop the skill sets that he needs, that even if, my goal is after being here years, he can go into any industry and add value on the marketing side. And so,
there's definitely a lot to learn. I tell my employees that have been here from the beginning, and even the ones that just get hired now, it feels, to them, probably feels late, but that they're coming on to something that's already built and whatnot. But we have so much growth to come that there's going to be a day they look back and realize just how small we were today. That oh, you remember that time we were out in that shop on Josh's property, right? That's still where we are today. So we tell people you're still not late, but the people that have been around here a while, we're pretty open and honest about sharing the struggles and what we're doing and whatnot, to hopefully to educate them on, if they ever start their own business, how it's done and where the struggles are. And how to be successful
and to be part of the story. Like, right. Yeah. Like I helped us get through this challenging time because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. I tell them, I hope that they really do feel pride and ownership in what we are building, you know.
It's unreal. So last night was when we did the tour, and obviously none of the employees were here, but when Josh was walking through, and you know, you guys have grown to 63 full-time now in 3+ years. Like that's insane. And what I was talking to Josh about too is like not only the 63 full-time that he's hired in-house, but think of all of those companies that they're buying materials and goods from that are also expanding because of the funds you're dumping into them. And so there's a lot more value that you guys have brought into the marketplace other than just MKC.
Yeah.
But, you know, I just admire individuals like you and Brandon and the story behind what you guys have done. And I feel like they've done such a good job at marketing the story, and people are buying your products not because it's just a knife.
Right.
Like your story alone's obviously like you're a master bladesmith and there's few and far between you, but like they're buying into your stuff because it represents something so much more than just a knife. Right. And that's what I think competitors don't understand. And I'm sure, I don't know if you, I mean, I know you guys have probably run into challenges with people sending cease and desist letters and things like that. And that's been a whole thing that we've gone through too. But it's like, you can't patent your story.
Right. Exactly.
People can't attack the story and what it means to like build a America-made product and story that like, it's literally the American dream you guys are selling. And it's like, you can't replace that.
Yeah. And I think it's part of your guys' success too, from the standpoint that when people come to Western Hunt Expo and the actual owners there, right? There's a lot of companies that launch and that people run it, but customers don't feel like that connection because they actually don't know what the owner looks like, sounds like. They haven't shaken their hand. And when they see it's you and they start talking about the different plans and the ideas and you're excited about it and you're full of energy and you're trying to build something really cool, then they can really feel like they're helping you. And they're buying into, and we tell our employees downstairs all the time when they go work a show, there's going to be some people come up and buy a knife just because they
want a nice
like the knife and whatever. But a lot of those people are going to come there and they're going to bullshit with you at the booth for a while, and then they're going to turn around and buy a knife. And I said, they didn't necessarily buy a knife. They bought you. They bought you, right? So, you know, there's a way to do sales where it's not so salesy. I said, because I will run away from a booth when I feel like I'm being like pressured, like sold. But if it's just like, oh, good to meet you, Nate. Where are you from? What do you hunting this fall? And like, it turns into a conversation and it's like, oh, you're from Idaho. I'm from Idaho. Right. And like this conversation begins and, you know, the next thing you know, they're buying a knife and it's like, well, that dude bought a knife because he liked the person, you know? And I think a lot of places tend to miss that, you know?
100%. Anytime you share that bighorn sheep experience with anybody that's been in the hunting industry for years or hunted, they all have a story that they immediately share back.
Yeah.
I had this deer hunt, this exact same thing happened.
Right.
And so there's an instant connection there. And we're solving a real problem too.
Right.
Like that's the other thing. I try to focus with our product development, and Paul's obviously a big part of this, but we focus on like, what problem are we actually solving that's giving us a reason to develop this product?
Yeah. Well, and you had vision because you came into a market where there was some people already doing it, right? And so to be fully honest, when Isaac was, I really care about Isaac and his family. So when he was telling me about, well, I'm thinking about going to this company, and I'm like, well, what does this company do? And he's like, well, it's a digiscoping attachment, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, to be fully honest, I only at that point was concerned about Isaac. And, you know, I kind of knew what we could offer. And I was just like, man, be careful, you know? And then also it's just like,
that's probably still good advice today, by the way.
Yeah. Well, and I was like, well, there's other companies out there, and it's like, I don't know about this Ollin thing, but like, you know, I was skeptical, right? And then, you know, Isaac sent me one, and you know, put it on my phone or whatever. And then when it like snaps to your scope, it's like this aha moment, right? It's like, oh, holy shit. and then you get your other stuff out and you try the other stuff and then you put this thing back on. And I remember like 2 or 3 times I just kept taking it off and like snapping, like, is this thing going to be off at some point? Did I get lucky? And then you're like, okay, well, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, and then, but then you can have a cool product, but then you still have to, you know, actually execute the business. Right.
Yep.
And that's what you guys have done. And also it's like, you guys are starting to be, you know, make that brand actually recognizable, you know, that Ollin, because again, in the beginning, like, what's MKC? You know, it's like, it doesn't mean anything to anybody, right? What's Ollin? Who knows? You know, whatever. And then pretty soon you start to recognize that brand, and then you start to see people, you're out to dinner and you see somebody with a phone case and they have a Ollin attachment on their phone case. Like, you're starting to see that brand around. It's cool. Guys have them down in our shop. Travis had one this morning on his phone. I was thinking to myself, hopefully those guys don't think he put that on there just because they were coming. They didn't even actually know you were coming. But you guys have just done a really good job in the first couple of years of like getting that brand out there. And I think people don't understand the work. Like, from your perspective, like the amount of shows you have to go to, the amount of tax, the amount of, you know, the winter trade shows. It's not just online advertising. Like, you have to get out and grind. You guys have definitely done that.
Yeah. And just like, I can't say enough about the people that are on the team. Mm-hmm. Like, it's been a group effort getting us to where we go, between family investors, Jordan and Casey, other investors, Isaac, Trina, Paul. Like, it's been a Lexi. It's been a group effort. And, you know, I think anybody can start a business, but not everybody should start a business.
Right.
And Isaac, Paul, all of these people, when they join into Ollin, they all sacrificed something, whether it was a pay cut, no benefits.
Yeah.
And they jumped in to be a part of something that has meaning to them. Yeah. Right. And so, like, Isaac, my guess is the offer that you guys had him probably was a better offer on paper, but he just was super passionate about getting in on the ground floor of something that was so new, that was within the first year of launching. And yeah, he had to sacrifice benefits. Like, right now, we're still at a point where we don't offer health benefits to join Ollin.
Right.
But I try to get creative. I'm like, what can I offer these people, these individuals, on top of just an incredible experience to build a new company? And so, you know, we're super flexible with PO. We allow them to work remote when they need it. You know, those types of things. And then we're growing fast enough now that, like, we want to be able to add those types of benefits. But yeah, like I said, back to that point where I think anybody can build a business, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I've been super fortunate, and I don't know what it is, but for some reason we've just attracted the right talent.
Well, to me, that's the key. You have to have the right people, and then you can build whatever. You got to build the right foundation, and good people attract more good people. When you walk around downstairs, you see what's downstairs. It's magnetic. People want to join that. They want to be a part of that, you know. And it's also our job to not put someone down there that disrupts that. Right. You know, no matter how talented they are. Right. Like, we'll go find someone else. You know, what's the goal with Ollin? What you got some new? I mean, we talked a little bit about some new stuff coming out. I don't know how much you want to talk about or whatever, but like, what's your goal over the next 2 or 3 years here?
Yeah. So the vision for this is, you know, follow the mission and the vision. Mm-hmm. You know, I think real marketing is connecting people to awesome products, connecting people to an experience, connecting people to their passions. And so that's always going to be the focus. Now, innovation and product development is part of that mission. And so we want to continue to expand our product lines and create value for individuals in the hunting space and other demographics. One of the new products that we announced at the Hunt Expo, this Nexus, again, it complements our snapshot adapter that we developed at Ollin. It goes back to speed. It's essentially an adapter connecting your spotting scope, binoculars, camera to your actual tripod itself. So it's magnetic. It's quick. You don't have to twist anything. It just attaches on there, locks in. You can actually attach it to guns, bipods on there, and things like that. So that's a big product line that we've got coming out. It's going to complement what we're doing, and it's going to allow us to also cater to some new audiences on top of the hunting community.
Sure.
Photographers, the birding community, the nature community. And so I think what you guys have done at Montana Knife Company is you've created this foundation where there really is no cap.
Right.
There's no ceiling to what you guys can do. You're a lifestyle brand. You've got incredible products, incredible people, and that's essentially what we're trying to build it all in.
Sure.
And I love the early stages. The first 5 years of businesses is where I love, and I always want to invest my energy in there, whether I'm the one in the trenches building it or getting to the point that I can now consult and advise. So my personal goal was to build this in a way where one day we could potentially have an acquisition. However that looks, I don't know. When, I don't know. Right now I'm just so excited to be here and to build something that has meaning. But I want to be able to develop my personal skills and resume in a way that I can go help other entrepreneurs do the same thing.
Yeah.
And so that's my long-term goal with it. I think every individual in the company might have their own specific visions and goals for it, but that's what we're trying to build it all in.
Yeah. No, it's super cool. No, it's cool. It's been fun to watch. I think it was really, really smart getting Isaac, and that provides you that community marketing aspect. The whole, digital TV ad marketing stuff is more and more of what we're starting to get into, but I think it's also important not to forget the community and forget who got you there and whatnot. But, that's a whole nother side, but it's really cool what you're building. And like you say, solving a problem, frankly, a problem that I hadn't spent a lot of time thinking about, right? I
hadn't either till that hunt, right?
Yeah. With my spotting scope, attachments and whatnot I had, but like you say, that thing almost should have been called the aha, because there's an aha moment when you snap it on there and you're like, oh, damn, that's cool.
And one of my favorite things about the product that's like, you know what it's like when you're in the trenches and, I'm seeing the vision on new products, new marketing campaigns and things, and I'm just so anxious and excited to get there that sometimes you have to remind yourself to stop, pause, and look what we've created, look what we've done. And kind of
we talk about that all the time. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
Because the more you grow and the more plans you develop, the more pressure there becomes. And we do occasionally, we have to just like look at each other and be like, okay, we got to appreciate what just happened last week.
You almost got to force yourself to do
last year. Yeah. And also, we're also moving so fast that sometimes it's hard because like, oh, good job, but what are we doing next week, right? And you kind of, and in any business, it can be that way. Ours is pretty fast and it changes fast, but in any business, you're like, well, that was successful, but what are you doing next year, and how are you going to grow? And we've even talked like, okay, well, you did, X amount of dollars this year. Okay, well, with our goals next year, we have to do that by August, right? Or whatever the date is. And you're like, well, shit, it felt like we were fighting to get done what we just did. How are we possibly going to do more? But with that, it's through finding, better help, and then also just getting better at what you do, right. And that's where we're constantly trying to process, improve. But I think to me, it comes down to the people, the employees, and finding people that are better than you in certain areas, and that can take that load off you and allow you to do the things that you're really good at, And
I was fortunate enough to sneak into just a portion of these guys' team meeting this morning. And it was really cool to see. There was a gal that was up kind of talking about all the things that, need done today, need done this week. And then after they talked through kind of the game plan, Josh steps up and made sure he took time to say, guys, this is what we accomplished last week. And there were some crazy numbers, and you could just see the whole team like, oh my gosh, like that's cool. And so it's important to look back and reflect. And that's one of the things that I think is kind of unique to our product that I really love, that anytime somebody using our Ollin snapshot system, what are they doing? They're taking a picture or of a video, right. And it's of something they're passionate about. And so we get a ton of what we call user-generated content.
That's priceless.
And it's priceless. And those are the moments when I just sit back and you just click on that tab, whatever it is on social media. I wasn't a social media guy before this, but you click on that tab and it shows all the people that have tagged your company. And I've seen this product that started in my basement with a 3D printed, and now it has literally traveled the entire world and captured some of the most incredible footage. One of your employees was just showing us that cougar and a cow elk attack, and like that thing's gone viral. I'm like, how cool is it that this product is like gone around the world? And those are the moments of like, I've got to force myself and like sit back and look and like, this is really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. And people, I mean, I'm getting ready to go on a big hunt right now. You put a lot of thought into what gear exactly you're taking, right? And for people to choose whether it's your guys' attachment or our knife or whatever, like there's a lot of stuff out there and they're choosing your product. That's something to for sure be proud of.
Oh yeah.
You know, well, man, I appreciate you jumping on here. Where can people follow you and find you on the social media and website and all that stuff?
Yep, Instagram. Our handle is just Ollin Company, so Ollin Company. You'll see the red and white symbol, just like on the hat here, and then Ollin.Co is our website. Unfortunately, couldn't buy the domain.com, even though it's kind of a stagnant website.
Oh, really?
It's not being used. So yeah, it's Ollin.co, and we get sometimes people reaching out to our support team and they put .com, like, they didn't respond. I'm like, I promise, Trina and Lexi are on top of this. They'll respond within 24 hours. And then usually it's because they just did .com instead of .co. But
sure.
Yep, Ollin.co. That's where you can find us. And
yeah, awesome. Well, people check that out and then definitely look them up. You guys are at most of the major trade shows.
Yep.
Wild Sheep Show.
They'll find Isaac, or Isaac will find them. He's a little peacock at those shows.
Isaac will definitely find you. You'll notice. So, yeah. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. Congratulations.
Over here.
Yeah.
And thanks for letting us stay at your place. This has been incredible.
Yeah.
It's inspiring. And I was telling Isaac last night after we were done chatting, I was like, dude, just like, if coming and just rubbing shoulders with Josh, Brandon, their team, if this doesn't expand your vision in life and with this company, you need to wake up because this is like absolutely incredible. So no, thank you so much. And your wife's been incredible too. So,
well, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, congratulations on the growth. I'm glad it's gone well. And thanks for taking Isaac off of my hands.
Yep.
All right. Appreciate it, man.